it's been a tough year, man. I went through a lot of things, a lot of project. I mean, it's not that like I'm complaining about it. I'm grateful, but I feel like last year was like a lot of production, a lot of shit happening at the same time, and I kind of just a bit neglected, like my personal mental health, and I was just focusing on getting workout, and I feel the effects now, I guess. Yeah. Um, but it's good in a good way too. Like it allowed me to also take a step back and reflect on that and try to take it easy. It's a tricky game as an entrepreneur, a creative. I feel like there's always so many things that need to get done, and I don't know. I don't have the formula to be honest with you. I just try to gauge, give myself a break sometime, and try to prioritize things and not try to have too much on my plate. But it always catch up. So I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. Having too much stimuli or a lot of interaction has always came with a cost of like exhaustion. And so yeah, I always liked sitting in silence, or even like I just felt like that was always my kind of happy place, just being in places that are quiet, not talking too much. And so that's I feel like, yeah, I always been aware of that. And growing up maybe was like a bit hard for me because I thought like I had a problem. I always felt like a bit envious of like super extroverted people that are just like yapping, and I feel like society also tend to glorify like super extroverted personalities. And yeah, so I was trying to like emulate that, but then it came at the cost of like super like being exhausted, going through like social anxiety too. And then I was like, hey, like I'm just a super introverted person, and like let me tap into that, and like that allows me to like recharge. So for me it's that, like even when I know I'm gonna be like going to like social events, things like that, I need to like plan that in advance. So I give myself like a day or two where I don't have too much social interaction, recharge my batteries, and then yeah. So I guess it's just a personality trait, like short answer. I didn't necessarily always tap into that introversion for like creativity, and but once I was able to like tap into it, then all the magic happened. For me personally, it's like, yeah, I'm like super grateful because it allows for like a deep introspection of you, what you're going through, um, things that you experience, and it's a superpower for creative. I feel like it is a superpower. With creating art, I feel like there's zero fear. With people, yes, like always. Um, so I guess like my escape route was always to externalize it through art. And no, so like there's no fear. I feel like there is no limit in it. Like I just gave myself the authorization to do it, to creative means. So yeah, like I feel like just it just giving yourself like the right to feel through like what you do. And no, like there's no fear at all. It's the opposite. I feel like I want to externalize as much as I can through it, because there's like so much that is like suppressed, and um so no, like creating for me has always been like a great outlet to externalize all of that. We always seek like source of inspiration for like things that we want to create, and sometimes it's like, for me a lot of time it was like I worked a lot with plants, so it was always like nature. And but it's like oftentimes I cannot create if I'm going through something, right? And Well, that's what I thought. It's like I thought it's like, hey, like, you have your source of inspiration and like this is how you create, and that's, these are your mediums. And but like, when you go through stuff or you feel depressed or you feel sad or like you're going to grieve, it's like, oh, you take some time to like, outside of your practice and try to process that and then come back to it. But then I feel like a few years ago, I was just in a space where like, nothing made sense to me creatively, and I was like, why don't I look inward and like start going through I think it was during COVID, man. Like we are just like all locked up and like not being able to be out in contacts of things. So this is where I started making sculptures again. And I was like, oh fuck. And at that time, like I feel like I was just like, hey, it's a free for all anyway. Like we might not survive this shit, so let it out. It was important for me to be able to create that space where like, hey, this is my safe creative space. And within that, there is no limit. Like you can feel whatever you need to feel. And it's also the fact that I don't show most of my work too. So for me, it's like that kind of like creating that precious thing that I'm protecting. Some of the work that I create is very personal. Maybe I'll show it, maybe I'll never show it. So knowing that, it's like, okay, I'm not afraid to like be vulnerable because I create out of a space of externalizing personal emotion, and it's not necessarily for like a specific outcome of showing it, but it's also just going through that specific process of channeling what you're feeling. So that for me was very freeing and gave me like, the courage to tap into being vulnerable. I grew up in France for the first half of my life, so we had a huge forest in the back of our house, so we always went and played there. And so all my childhood memories, like some of the best memories, like happen in that specific part of the wood. And I think when my family moved into Canada, um, I was kind of a bit disconnected from it. And I feel like here, living in certain environment where it's always concrete, and it's weird to say that because there's a lot of forest and nature in Canada, but living in urban environment kind of like rob you from that. There's a lot to learn about, outside of like the human species in itself. I feel like we're so much disconnected from other natural elements, like in the way we live in our societies, that we kind of like forget how to human. So plants kind of like give me that, you know um check that plants are like not something, or like forests are not something that you go visit, or like they're like outside of our human environment. Like it's part of us. Like we cannot be without nature. Like we can survive without plants. That's all I'm trying to say. So for me, it's like knowing that, it's like it's fascinating, like our relationship with plants, nature, the ecosystem around us. We kind of like neglect that, but like no matter where you're from, or like what's your origin, like there's specific spices that you use, or there's specific plants that are part of your diet, or like your cultural heritage, or that have a specific spiritual um meaning. And so learning more about that, it's like, oh, like whenever I'm traveling, going to a different country, like who are the indigenous people of that place, like how do they use plants, what are their relationship with earth and the forest. So that plant, and sometimes you find that you can be like two continents away, and like some culture use the same plant for the same spiritual reason, and like, okay, there's like something deep associated with plants. Where you can have the most impact is what you choose to consume, and like being doing more research about like what do you consume every day. And that, like most of the plant product that you consume have to be grown somewhere, and you knowing like where is that food coming from, like what kind of agricultural practices behind it, Have we destroyed forest ecosystem to grow that? Have we poisoned ecosystems? Did we use pesticide, herbicide? Did we use fungicide to like grow that food? And what are those impacts? It can apply to any food that you consume on a daily occasion. Like, sometimes we need that cup of coffee. It's like I need to like wake up and like grab myself a cup of coffee somewhere. But like, do you know exactly where it's coming from? So knowing the origin of like, where that food has been grown can have an impact. And you choosing to consume things that like not destroying the environment or not destroying um not enabling human exploitation as well, because yes, we can talk about environment, but like I feel like the whole food production system has also a lot of problem with human exploitation as well. So it's about what we consume on a daily basis and us being able to make conscious decision about what we choose to encourage, and that can have like huge impact. People are so far disconnected from their food production system that it's just like, you talk about it and like you're like, oh yeah, 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 and then go back to doing what they're doing. But until it's like, oh, like, I have this type of cancer because I've been eating food that's like full of pesticide or glyphosate, for example. And then I was like, oh, now I'm gonna try to eat organic stuff, or I'm gonna try to make sure that I eat some locally grown vegetables. So I feel like unless something like really bad, unfortunately, happened to you, a lot of people don't like, really seek to make the best choices. I always trying to involve myself in projects that, you know, can raise awareness, but also like it's tangible project that are like, hey, how can we like implement project to protect old growth forests, for example, and how can I do initiatives here? Like, I mean, I used to do a lot of like educational workshop about plants, here, even volunteering, and so yeah, at times I do feel like having all this information and not being able to like make big changes about it like at the scale that I want to, it's like a bit frustrating. But no, like I feel like being able to like make those small project, no matter how small it is, for me, at least like I'm able to like know I make a difference on the personal side of it. There is an urgency, like unless like you've seen it real hand, like I don't know if you ever like just went drove a couple of hours outside of Montreal and went to see like a site that has been completely clear cut, like a forest that's been completely destroyed. And sitting there, I feel like there's not one human that can tell me that that feels right and that's like, we should continue that route. And we do a pretty good job here at hiding it because there's a regulation that prevents us from cutting tree along like the roads and riverbanks. So when you drive, like you think there's a lot of forest and like it's pretty green, and but if you go like a couple of meters inside past the road, this is where you see the real impact of that. And some of it is like it's habitat for like endangered species, or it's like indigenous traditional land, for example. So yeah, it is very problematic with our methods of production, like us, how we live as a society as well. It's always from a place where like we have to maximize production or output to the detriment of like human, to the detriment of nature. So, and once you start learning about like indigenous way of like growing food, for example, or like, um, it's always from a place where like, hey, I can take what I need, but then like, I need to like give, um, let nature and like follow its course. Like I don't have to destroy nature to like produce my food, right? And us like, with ultra capitalization and human greed, always trying to like maximize profit, maximize production, maximize output. um we're just like going in a direction where we think we have infinite resource. It comes from that model too of thinking we have like infinite resources, so it's always growth, growth, growth. And yeah, but the reality is that there's no infinite resource, there's no infinite forest, there is no infinite water. Like, if we keep going that route, then what are we going to leave for the next generations? The quality of food that we consume, it's entirely tied to the quality of the land where the food is growing. So if your food is completely depleted, or your land is completely depleted from nutrients or natural elements, you're gonna rely on like synthetic fertilizer, synthetic pesticides, to like grow the food. So at the end of the day, what you're consuming is completely depleted of nutrients. So that is one, but also like there's no life on earth without like forest and ecosystem. So for us, it's not just a question of health, it's a question of survival of a species. Like, if there's no forest today, like yes, ocean do produce a lot of the oxygen, but forests also produce like, a whole lot of oxygen. So for us, like our survival is entirely linked to the ecosystems of our planet. If you go to a lot of places in Africa, for example, you have the sub-Saharan belt where like, 40% of the land is at the risk of degradation. And when I say that is like literally because of global warming, the desert is advancing, the land is getting degraded, so you're not able to grow food. So you have to abandon your traditional or like, your homeland to like migrate into like other places just to like survive. So that is one. Here we don't see all the impact, but in a lot of countries, they're starting seeing those impacts. I work a lot in coffee too, like, in Central and South America, and you see a lot of people abandoning their land because it's getting too hot for them to grow their crops. So, people losing half of their crop within a year. How are you going to support your family? Like, you just lost an entire crop, or you lost 50% of your crop because of global warming. So a lot of them are like, hey, I'm going to abandon my land, migrate to the US, go find a work, and to be able to sustain my family. So here, like, we're cozy in our condos, and like we don't really see that. But for a big portion of the population in the world, like the effects are real. Yeah, it's just us looking out for other humans, I guess, through like, our actions. And but it just feels right, honestly. Like, I don't know, man, it feels right. um I can tell you, like, with everything that I'm doing, whether it's like doing art project, design project, working with plants, um and you probably have felt that, like, like we question what we do every now and then. You question what you do. It's like, hey, am I doing the right thing? It's like, should I keep doing this project? You know, is this one I want to keep doing for the rest of my life? Like, we always have those moments of questioning what we do. Like, you can be a doctor, you can be like, if I don't know, an athlete. Like, there's a point in your life when you're going to question what you do. And for me, like, the only time when I don't question what I do is like when I do environmental project. If I'm planting tree, like I know for a fact 200% that I'm doing the right thing. So yeah, man, it's just the feeling that I have when I'm doing those projects. Like there's no way I can question what I'm doing. Like it just feel naturally right. Our way of connecting with each other have like shifted toward this algorithmic algorithmic form that we no longer are seeking like real connections. And so it's hard for you to like seek out those projects, or if like, all you consume and the only way you connect with others is through like, social media platform, or how you raise awareness, or like how you think you have an impact is by, sharing a story about, hey, this is what's happening in Sudan, or this is what's happening here, and it's like, okay, but what are you doing about it? Like, so, and I know a lot of people are doing a lot of things about it too, but I feel like generally, like, we kind of like losing this urgency to like connect with others and like implement like meaningful project that have like real tangible impacts. So yeah, I mean, it can be a great tool to like raise awareness, but I feel it's also strip away a lot of from the work that actually need to be done. You can't just create for the algorithm. It's like you need to be able to create outside of it. And for me, it's like it's so powerful. Like, that's when you're able to like tap into like real authentic stuff. Um, and you're able to channel like pretty much like the real essence behind your practice. And I feel like so many people are just trapped in like, hey, like this is what's working right now on the algorithm, I'm going to try to emulate that. And at the end it's just like, you go through it as like 10,000 people who have like the same exact, I don't know, formula or aesthetic, or like it's a copy and paste. And it's sad because there's so many creative out there that just fall into that trap. This year I'm going to put a more effort on creating personal work. That some of it I've already created, but it's just like showing it and like continuing that direction too. There's a lot of things that I've been processing as well, that's like showing up to my work as well. And yeah, man, one of it, like I was talking about Sudan earlier, like, my dad passed away in Sudan a few years ago. And I never really got the chance to like go visit his grave and grieve properly. So for me, it's always been like a big weight. And yeah, Sudan been at war for like many years. So for me, it's literally impossible for me to go out there. So how do you like grieve and like process that, without you being physically there, being able to like visit the grave of your father? So that has been something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. And I've been trying to create work to like process that.